So when I said that he's isolated, either he's at odds with somebody at a different government level, or he simply ignores them. I've heard from people who said, I have not, elected officials at different levels, I have never talked to this man on the phone. I've never had a meeting about an agenda item. And that's strange to me.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
We are back on the Wedge Live podcast at the Weber Park Pool and Weber Park here with DeWayne Davis, who was a candidate for Mayor of Minneapolis. I'm your host, John Edwards. This is another bike ride with mayoral candidates. Thanks, DeWayne, for being here.
Thanks, John.
Have you ever podcasted while biking before?
I have not, so you can see me trying to get a good grip on what we're doing here.
You had to borrow your husband's bicycle, I hear.
Yep, I had to. The other bike got stolen because we were very careless with our garage door.
So when you're not borrowing your husband's bicycle, how are you getting around the city?
I walk most of the time, John, especially in this summer has been unusual because typically in the summer I walk about 8 to 10 miles across the city.
A day?
A day.
Oh.
So I haven't been able to do that because of the campaign, and I do miss it.
You are a serious walker. Where do you walk?
So I have several different routes. You know, I live in North, so I tend to go toward the river on Plymouth Avenue. Sometimes I go in the other direction toward Loring Park. I walk downtown. Sometimes I go all the way down Washington Avenue, South Washington Avenue toward the University of Minnesota campus. And the reason I can do this is because I'm typically listening to podcasts, podcasts or sermons, you know, and or I'm talking to friends and family. So that 10 miles goes fast.
I think there are a lot of people who can't imagine walking that much. Sometimes I will walk quite a bit. I don't know if like 10 miles. Hello.
Yeah.
That's quite a distance. What compels you to do that? Is it a health reason? I find that exercise, whether it's biking or walking, is kind of meditative.
Yes.
It helps with my creativity.
Yeah.
You de-stress. So what compels you to take long walks like that?
Well, it started during COVID. So I had a gym membership. I was going to the gym every day. COVID hits and the gym closes. And there's no indication of when it's going to reopen. And so when it got warmer, I said, well, that's the least I could do. So normally I would, I used to run on the treadmill, which my doctor totally advised against because I'm so tall, he was worried about my knees, I'm getting older. So I said, you know what? During COVID, it just was a way to get some exercise in. But it really did become, as you said, it became just a really multi-purpose way for me to unplug or to listen to something, to call people, and it just became a way I move. So even now, I miss it so much, but the schedule just doesn't allow it.
Should we talk about the convention that the endorsement was just overturned?
Yes.
You were the candidate who got kept from the second ballot because of the miscounting. If anyone was harmed by the convention, the way the first ballot went, it was you. How do you feel about the Omar Fateh's DFL endorsement being overturned, the appeals? What are your thoughts?
Well, this is something that I was worried about. So right after the convention, and people were talking about challenges, and yes, we saw a lot of what went wrong. But one of the reasons we didn't want to do a challenge is because We didn't want to relitigate. We thought it would be, it's certainly for us, because we're an insurgent campaign, it would be distracting. We wanted to get to work. We wanted to find out how we could effectively get our message out if we didn't have access to the DFL van. We just wanted to get done. So, but I also was worried about this outcome, where you would anger and disappoint people who operated in that convention, delegates who operated that convention in good faith. I think every delegate there saw some of the problems and the challenges, but yet they gave it their best. And I knew this kind of outcome would create division and anger and disappointment. So I'm really disappointed in the mayor, because he and his allies spent all of this money and time making these challenges, and no time trying to make the case for why we should give him another term. And so we just are not engaging the real issues here with this sort of this fighting, insider game kind of thing. But one thing about knowing that, what happened to me, it does confirm something that we knew going into the convention. We knew that we had a lot of momentum, we had a lot of strength, and that we should have gone to that second ballot. We felt that. We felt that by in talking to the delegates, committed and uncommitted. So when we heard that I should have advanced, it confirmed what we already knew. That we have been reaching people, our message is getting out there, we do have strength, and that this is not a two-person race.
Right. I get frustrated because you seem to be caught in the middle. Like the mayor has maybe the big business base, the wealthier and more powerful segments of the city behind him, and unwilling to move away from him even after 8 years. Omar Fateh has a younger activist, the DSA crowd. You're getting caught in the middle. Personally, you are my preference.
Yeah, well, thank you.
But do you feel caught in the middle? What do you think it's going to take for people to say, why instead of sticking with the mayor, why don't I give DeWayne Davis a try? What do you need to do?
Well, John, that's exactly what we're trying to do, and that's also why I did not want to get involved in this sort of chaotic mess. I want people to listen and hear, and we've been trying to get our message out there. I also have been warning early on, even at every meet and greet, everybody I meet, that the mayor does want this to be a binary choice. And I'm telling people, don't let the mayor disempower you. We have a ranked choice election, so you can look at a series of candidates and you can begin to think about how you want to show up. And so I love the way you said, sometimes I do feel caught in the middle, but that's why I also want to keep my head down. I talk to people. I try to get them to understand what's at stake. And I seriously, every time I make a statement about the mayor, what I'm trying to get him to do is to justify why we should give him another term. I don't think he's ever made that case.
So the case that I hear, is the other side is very scary. Even though his opponents are all very different people,
yes,
he doesn't want to talk about all of his opponents.
No, he doesn't.
And he will run against the city council and say, I'm the only thing standing between you and these crazy, dangerous people on the city council. Only I can protect you. It's not a positive case for,
no, it's not.
I've been a great mayor. It is, I'm the normal one, everyone else is scary, you have to have me. Even though I came into the convention with 30% support, you have to take me.
Right. That is not a lasting, it's not a lasting coalition you are building. That's also not a lasting message. My point simply is, what he's actually saying, if you parse it, is that if he gets elected, we're in for the same that we've been getting. We no vision, no setting expectations, but making a boogeyman out of the city council so that he can get political advantage of. And it's just a waste of time. It's certainly a terrible time for that to be your posture, given what's happening in Washington, but also given what's going on in the city. He really should be telling us what he is going to do to make sure that our housing remain affordable. What are you going to do going forward? Not what you've done, but what are you going to be doing? And so I'm not hearing any of that. you're asking us to give you another term because you've what? Personally grown? But what's your vision?
So you made a case in David Brower's backyard. David Brower had like a candidate meet and greet kind of Q&A session in his backyard, and you made a case about the mayor being isolated. I don't know if I had completely thought about it that way. Who are his allies at various levels of government? Who's on Team Fry on the county board or in the Minneapolis legislative delegation or on the city council? Like he seems to have enemies everywhere.
Yes. And if they're not enemies, he simply has no relationship with them, which is still very strange to me. That, given what the city has to deal with and the challenges of the city, that you're not leveraging every relationship at every level of government to make sure that you are responding to what's going on. So when I said that he's isolated, that's what I'm talking about, that either he's at odds with somebody at a different government level, or he simply ignores them. I've heard from people who said, I have not elected officials at different levels. I have never talked to this man on the phone. I've never had a meeting about an agenda item. And that's strange to me.
You're the mayor of Minneapolis. You are an important person. People want to get along with you, right?
Exactly. So that was always, and so that's when I begin to say, and that's also why, when you see the way he attacks the city council, early on I just sort of saw it as of course, if you have no vision, the only explanation for failure or something that happened, the only explanation is that somebody else did it. Okay. But at the same time, the reason I came with isolated things, has he enlisted the help of others at different government levels, or has he collaborated in a proactive, strategic way for things that the city needs? I'm not sure it's true that he's done that.
So I was reading the More Neighbors questionnaire, the housing questionnaire. I think I was a co-sponsor on that questionnaire. One of the big questions I have this year is rent control.
Yes.
Because I feel like there may be appetite among the city council majority that we have and may have again after the election to enact rent control. Mm-hmm. And we saw what happened in St. Paul with rent control, and it's been blamed for causing a slowdown in development, which I think is at least a little bit credible. So it sounds like you're supportive of something.
Right.
What might that something be, and why should we not be afraid it would slow development? Yeah.
So that's the issue. So often when we talk about rent control, again, we talk about it in isolation, and when you operate in isolation, I think that's what you get with that. You get what St. Paul is getting. That is, if it is strict rent control, you say you cap it. When developers and entrepreneurs are thinking about a project, they see that and they fear that they can't do anything. And you see that what St. Paul is doing is also making exemptions. Telling people you can come and develop and you won't be subject to the control. That to me really this is the question about how do you not inadvertently choke off supply. But the reason I think that happened, I said we think about rent control and isolation. If we think about rent control, we also should be answering to certain kinds of questions. And that should be, what kind of housing, where are you going to build it, and who for? And if you're going to put in some kind of control, that rent control discussion cannot and should not happen without having a very strategic and real understanding of what, where, and by whom. And so in essence, you can begin to parse that in many ways. If you're saying you're building housing for 0 to 30 AMI, deeply affordable, then the rent control question doesn't apply there. If you're talking about where, same thing. If the city is strategically saying we are providing city property at little to no cost, or we're giving you, we're really bringing you capital through a housing trust fund or some other kind of program, you can begin to talk about where and how you're going to finance it. And then by whom? That's a tougher question, but are you incentivizing nonprofit and public development? Is it the same private guys that you do it all the time? So my point is, if you're going to have a conversation about rent control, and I know that makes sense on the renter side, you really do, so that you do not inadvertently choke off your supply and choke off the development that you actually do need. You have to be having these other conversations too. And I think that's what's been missing, and that is what St. Paul is discovering right now. There are things that they want to do, but with that sort of blanket control, they can't do it. And so you see, they're actually trying to answer the question after the fact. So they're giving exemptions.
So do you think new construction exemption is important?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, so I would rather we try to create a policy that doesn't need exemptions, and at the same time really begin to look at some creative ways for rent stabilization or enforcement of the current rent stabilization process. That is, are we protecting people who are going to be evicted? Are we giving people the types of notices and opportunities that they need to protect themselves? Those kind of stabilization things, I think we need to be far more aggressive on, so that you're in some ways, you may not need rent control, but you're also protecting renters from the capriciousness of people who may not care about them.
So it sounds like you're open to tougher renter protections.
Yes.
In lieu of rent stabilization?
Yes, I am. And again, I'll be willing to talk about rent stabilization in a more in the form that people are traditionally talk about it. But I really think we need to have those other conversations: what, where, and by whom.
So a lot of people make a big deal about, well, that is luxury housing. That is
Yes.
too expensive housing.
Yes, I agree.
And well, here comes do you feel like all development is good development? Because I feel like there is research that shows you build more housing, even at the higher end of the scale, you're creating more supply. People are free to move from older units to more expensive units. That frees up units in the middle and at the bottom. Like, any kind of supply is better than not having more supply. Is that something you disagree with?
So here it goes back to a little bit of the same with the previous answer that I gave. So again, for instance, I think our housing issue is a supply issue, and we have been woefully behind on supply. And that's not just Minneapolis. Every major city has been doing that, mainly because we are still living the outcome of that terrible public housing policy from the mid-20th century, which I have to remind people all the time. Public housing in the mid-20th century was not a housing policy. That was a segregation policy. And so, so I think what we've done is we've privatized housing in such a way. So that's why the private developers are in there. I'm saying we need a much larger role for the government, federal, state, and city, and county. You need a larger role for them, because my point is, if you get them into the business, then we have not only the government, which isn't a profit-making entity, or you have public and nonprofit developers who are not profit-making entities. They can begin to do projects, and they can set prices at a rate that will balance the market downward. If you just rely only on private, you bid up the price. You bid up the price of housing. So if you say all development is good, all projects are good, well, most often right now it's going to be private. And if it's private, you're just going to keep building it up. You're going to be, bidding up the price of housing. And that's what I'm worried about here. We still have affordability. But if we keep bidding up the price the way we do, I think one candidate said we were already going to be Detroit. I don't think we have to worry about being Detroit.
Who said we're going to be Detroit? Was it a mayoral candidate?
Yeah, I think that was Brenda Short said that she's worried about us becoming Detroit. And I said, I don't think we're going to become Detroit. I worried about us becoming DC or San Francisco,
Right.
where they have so much private development that the price of housing has been bid up so that you've lost the affordability.
Do you think the development boom of like the mid 2010s through like when it fell off during the COVID years, do you think that was good? Do you think that helped, that extra supply in the system kept rents down?
Well, it's for a place like us where we needed it, like we had so few rental properties, it was helpful. It was helpful. And that's why I'm sounding the alarm now, because if we don't get a handle on it, we'll start to challenge our affordability. I think that's already happening, by the way. But I think we want to keep our affordability, and the one way to do that is not let the sort of an enormous amount of private development hog up the market.
Hello, Wedge Live podcast listeners. This is John Edwards speaking on behalf of our newest sponsor, betterthan94.org/open letter. What's better than 994? Literally anything. A trench poisoning people unlucky enough to have had it built through their neighborhood many decades ago sounds pretty bad to me. The Minnesota Department of Transportation refuses to study the boulevard option to replace I-94 through the heart of Minneapolis and St. Paul. To justify this, MnDOT has produced an unbelievably flawed analysis that says an urban interstate is actually safer and more environmentally friendly than a more traditional boulevard-style city street accommodating pedestrians, transit, bikes, and cars, as well as like better utilizing all of that space devoted to that trench. Please sign on to this letter that's broadly supported by more than 35 local organizations, elected officials, and me at betterthan94.org/open-letter. Taylor, can you read our pharmaceutical-style disclaimer at the end of this ad?
Rebuilding urban interstates can lead to several more generations of steep disparities in health issues, as diverse as asthma, cancer, old age dementia, children's brain development, heart attacks, strokes, depression, anxiety, and early death. Ask your doctor if betterthan94.org/open-letter is right for you.
All the challengers to the mayor, I think, have opposed his current approach to clearing encampments. But I want to ask it from the other end. And maybe I asked this when we talked before on the podcast. But I think people, if you live near an encampment, I have a lot of empathy for people who live near encampments and say, this cannot go another day. Like, it is dangerous for me and my family. Mm-hmm. It's also not, I mean, if an encampment burns down next to you, that's not good. The mayor has used that rhetoric, and I think it's effective. Like, for people who live near encampments, it's an emergency, and compassion or not, like, I don't want it to go on another day.
Right.
It's like, what is your response or reassurance to those people that just because you're opposing the mayor's encampment policy doesn't mean encampments are legalized, which is another thing he says that is a lie. No one is trying to legalize encampments. Like, what do you say to those people who, like, this is an emergency, it needs to be fixed today?
Right. Well, it's interesting you say it that way, because the way I even began to engage with encampments came through members of my church. And these are good, progressive people who care about the unhoused, who really want, and they really were very upset about encampment because they started to see some of those things, theft and filthiness just sort of spread out, and even children having to see things they don't want to see, like drug use. So I really began to talk to them about that. So I understood. I had very much empathy, and I began to question everybody about it, the city. And so what I've been saying is, I think they represent most of the people. That people want to do something, and they're not mean-spirited. They just want an answer, and that's what I've been offering. Like, how do we depopulate the encampments, and how do we put city resources at that purpose? That's what I've been wanting the mayor to talk about. How do we let people know? Hold on. I'm not used to this big hill.
You're taking us up a hill, DeWayne.
I know. Actually, we should turn around because we got so much fun. What I said to them is, how do we begin to depopulate it? How do we work with providers? How do we put money into it? Real money. Not money for just sweeping, but real, retain those providers who, by the way, are stretched thin already, and we're asking them to help us without providing any additional resources. And so what I've said to my members was, how do we begin to think about and work with the city for ways of depopulating those encampments? A humane, service-oriented touch. Sweeping is not that. And I think if we go to the people and say, this is what we're trying to do, I think people will have some patience with us. But we can't, sweeping it is just sort of pushing it out so they don't have to see it, and yet we have not made any dent in the problem.
Do we have the money to do that? Because I can't think it's cruelty for cruelty's sake.
Right.
It has to be like, well, we can't do it the right way, so we're going to do it whatever way we can. I feel like is maybe the approach.
And right. And
so do we have the resources?
This is where you go to the people and say, we're going to have to prioritize. The thing we wanted to do this year, we're going to have to put it off, but this is the most immediate need we have. And we're going to try to really, and by the way, we're going to give it our very best. We're going to expend the capital, both financial and political, to get it done. And again, if you tell people that, John, I believe people would be willing to hear it, especially given their concern about it. So this is what I also mean about, some of this stuff is tough. But if you're going to be a leader, you have to expend capital and you have to prioritize. I've heard from so many people in my meet and greets who said to me, they asked the question, how would you prioritize it? We don't have enough money to do all of this. And that's what I said, that's where we begin the discussion. Here's what's most immediate right now. Here's the big thing that's facing us. And it's also why you need to be able to have a trusting relationship with the city council. You're going to disagree, of course. But if the mayor had gone to the city council and said, this encampment problem, this is the thing that we've got to deal with today. And then say, here's how much we think it will cost. Here's what we want to try to do. And again, I don't know what the final package would be, but if you had a trusting relationship and you prioritize this, and then you went to the people and said, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, especially given how much people have been concerned about it, I just think that you would have gotten we would have gone further along than simply this backfighting or this sweeping the encampments the way it's been going.
What really frustrated me is we spent 2024 with the mayor holding press conferences at the site of encampment shootings, going like, well, see what the city council did? And I'm like, this is your encampment policy. They have no authority to stop you from doing whatever you're going to do. This is you. And you're holding press conference, you're the boss of police, you're in charge of the encampment policy, and somehow you're holding indignant press conferences? Yes. Like, what universe are we living in?
And that's exactly the issue. This sort of politicizing it, not working together, not building a trusting relationship where you can do hard things together. And that's the thing, John, we got to do hard things together.
Right.
That's the issue. I don't, and by the way, I'm saying this very clearly. I am not running to be an answer man or a king. I can't do this on my own. I'm not promising you I'm going to do this on my own. I need partners. I need the city council. I need the Hennepin County Board of Commissioners. I need our area delegation at the state legislature. I need the citizens. I need the neighborhood associations. I need everybody working at full capacity, trusting us to do the next best thing.
So if I am totally honest, ideologically, I don't have a ton of problems with the mayor. What I have a problem with is this year I'm casting my vote for mayor on who I think is who do I trust?
Yes. Yes.
Who do I think is gonna listen, who can get along with people, who is just a normal human being who I like and trust to do the right thing. And I'm looking at you, DeWayne.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I'm trying to tell people that I want to do. I want to work with people. I want to govern. And that's what has been so concerning to me about the way we've been operating. Early on, in several tables that I set of organizations, the question would inevitably get to what's going on at the city. And they were talking about, the mayor and the city council fighting, the language that was being used, the misinformation going out. And what really bothered me about that is, and it's by the way, what bothered me even as a minister, if we are fighting over, if we're fighting over small things, or if we're creating big issues and chaos out of small differences, we are getting distracted from real hard work. And so, and one thing about what I've seen with the mayor, I like what you said. When you look at it, and I've talked to city council members about this, on even some of the things that the mayor has vetoed, they are so close as to be, it's obvious something else is going on.
When Emily Koski gets tossed into the DSA category
Yes.
by the mayor's PACs,
Yes.
like, come on. Do you think we are all this stupid? I think
Yes.
I feel like nobody knows who Emily Koski is. We can say whatever we want about her,
Right,
and
but
we have $2 million to make people believe it, and of course they will.
Right. So that's the point I'm getting to. And people know then, like to your point, that's why people can't trust. Because, not only is something not getting done, but I don't think people can sometimes even tell you the nature of the disagreement. So how can you trust anybody in that matter if you don't even know the nature of the disagreement?
What do we do about this hostile federal government? There was a lot of, I think I read on your website, like this mayor doesn't show up. I showed up at Lake in Bloomington, I'm paraphrasing you, when that raid happened. And what I thought in the aftermath of that federal raid with masked federal agents on Lake Street was, I don't think the mayor can show up to things like this because he would inflame it. Through nothing he would have done in the moment, he just can't be on the street at a hot moment without people reacting very negatively to him.
That's true. And look, I'm fine with the mayor not being there. What I took issue with was with the mayor basically, unquestionably, basically saying that we were bad for being out there and that everything was wrong. And the reason I said that is because the mayor, if he didn't know, he should have known two things. One, that the Department of Homeland Security was in the courts at that very hour in Washington trying to explain why it was detaining and deporting people without due process. So which means we got an agency that we really can't trust, and the courts are trying to hold to accountable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the following day, that morning, the Trump administration announced that this was the part of their effort, basically a new federalized police force, and we were a test case. And so in the meantime, the mayor was criticizing us, blaming people for misinformation, telling us that ICE wasn't there. I was on the ground and saw them there. And instead of putting a show of force like Karen Bass in Los Angeles, like Gavin Newsom, and saying, look, we have a problem with the way that this administration does things. We do not trust them. And I want to ask the mayor, do you trust the Trump administration with what they're telling you? And so why are you trying to make us look like the enemy when the real danger is in Washington calling the shots? So that was my issue. Like, but it also begs the question. The administration in Washington is going to do some other things. How aggressive are you being? You can't simply rest on the laurels of what we've already done. So I would be talking to the city attorney, like, are you in conversation with the attorney general? There's certain things the attorney general can't do because he doesn't have standing. Do we, the city, have standing on something? And can we be aggressively going after? I mean, that's the kind of thing I want to hear from the mayor, given that we're going into an illiberal and autocratic regime.
I wonder if there's an element of keeping your head down, because I talked to Melvin Carter about this, and he did not give me a fiery answer.
I know.
Like, do mayors not want to criticize Trump because then you become the person who's targeted in a tweet, and then suddenly you have more federal agents on your tweet on the streets? Like, is there a value in keeping your head down? How should a mayor approach that?
There is value, but I'm not talking about going out there and creating a fight. I'm talking about responding to things that are happening in your city. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, trying to get in the news to go up against Donald Trump. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how are you serving your citizens and your residents? How are you assuring our immigrant population that we are not going to turn on you and we're going to protect you as best we can? And so I'm not talking about, I get that, I understand that. I also would caution you though, that bullies do not care about you putting your head down.
Right.
They don't.
Well,
And so
they will take all the people who put their head up first, and then then they'll come to you. You can at least be last, Dwayne.
So that's the thing you have to be aware that doesn't protect you. But at the same time, again, I'm not talking about picking fights. I'm talking about responding. So for instance, look, right now, we know that the administration, the Trump administration is going to come after LGBTQ people. So we can talk about how wonderfully, we're a refuge city. But at some point, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. And what are you going to do? And that's why I mean, like, you got to be ready to both protect, but you also got to be thinking strategically ahead of time of what's going to happen. That's why I say I would, tell my city attorney, please be in conversation with the Attorney General. I know that the Attorney General would like to do more, but Attorney General Ellison will tell you in a minute, I don't have standing to deal with this. Maybe we do. So, like I said, that's what I would say. Yeah, I understand that tendency that you don't want to be put a target on your back, but we already are a target. And again, putting your head down won't stop a bully.
People were critical of the chief for being out there, and I was thinking, well, at least the chief has some standing in the community as a leader, that he could be out there physically.
Yes.
I didn't really have a problem with him being out there, because I feel like that was like you in Jazz Hampton and Omar Fateh being out there.
Yes.
That's de-escalatory.
Yes. Exactly.
These are trusted people who can look at the crowd and say, no, not like this.
Right. And John, you see how the mayor turned that. So at the Native American forum, the question was, would you hold the chief accountable? And the mayor and the Star Tribune said, "Oh, we said we would discipline the chief." And I was like, "That's not what that question was about." Right. What we wanted to hear, and which we eventually got, was given what we know about the Trump administration's goals, given what we know that they have done, we need to hear from the chief what he did, what he thought they were doing, what he knew, and how they made sure that they were abiding by the separation ordinance. That's all what accountability is. Accountability is how do you provide information for people who have questions. And we were made to seem like we were being unreasonable for being concerned about what we were seeing and wanting to know exactly how our police department, who's under a separation ordinance, how they were dealing with a very chaotic and unclear thing.
What is your transportation agenda, DeWayne Davis? Your watch is talking to you.
Yes, it's keep my exercise. Look, I believe in multimodal transportation, and what that means is I think everything should be operating at full capacity, even roads. But certainly, what I think is missing here, and what I want to work with the city council with the county commissioners on, with the Met Council, is how do we build out transit? I'm a big transit guy. When I was in Washington, D.C., I took the subway to work every day. So when I got here, I asked somebody, I live in North and my church is in South. So I was asking people, what train do I take?
Yeah.
And people looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, now you got the BRT. Are you excited about the BRT? Do you live near one?
I don't live near one, but I'm excited about, I really do. I'm excited about the Blue Line extension. There's going to be a few years before that in North.
If it gets funded.
Yeah, but that's what we need to, I think the city needs to be really aggressively talking and partnering with everybody to see if we can make that happen. So I want a transportation system, especially in a place that gets as cold and snowy as we get. I want a transportation system that gets people around, especially in North Minneapolis. To get where the jobs are, to get where the shopping and the experiences are. And every time I talk to people, it's about the need to, if you don't have a car, and just talking to the unions this year, the unions are talking about all of these great training programs they have, all these apprenticeship programs, and all of their training facilities are not accessible. So if you're someone who lives in North Minneapolis and you're looking for a job and you don't have transportation, that to me is a clear sign that we're not serving. So I want to transfer a multimodal transportation system that however you need to get somewhere, to a job or to a great amenities of the city, the great events, you should be able to get on something and get you there.
So I could not afford to live in the neighborhood that I live in if I had to also afford the expense of a car.
Of a car, yes.
Like, this is, it's an economic boon in people's lives if they can go with a one fewer car or no car at all, because cars are more expensive than ever. The median new car price is like $50,000 a year. Every time I see the annual cost of car ownership, it blows my mind.
Yes.
I guess maybe I'm the few who is blissfully ignorant of these costs, but like if you own a car, you must know how expensive it is.
Oh.
And wouldn't it be a joy
It's expensive.
if you could just take a bus ride?
Exactly. Yes, and that's the key. As a minister too, well, I learned right away, like I said, there wasn't a train that could take me from North Minneapolis to South Minneapolis. But I also had the issue where, as a minister, I had to do hospital visits across the city, or across the area, actually, the metro area. And, the thought of having one car, we just couldn't make that work. So we have to have two cars.
What do you do when people come to you and they say, Mr. Mayor, DeWayne Davis, they took my parking.
Yes.
They redid this street and they took some of the parking, and I'm very upset about it. I hate bikes. I believe all the bikes are going to destroy the trees. I don't like this bus lane that took a little bit of my parking.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those thorny transportation issues?
Well, it's so funny you say that, because again, one of the things that, we're in that situation now, but one of the things I've been talking about is how do we make sure that we have all of those conversations, even in the planning, that we are talking about accessibility, we're talking about people with mobility challenges. And so I think some of that has been missing because we have this other goal, but those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. But I would say going forward, that's what I would want to do, that I get it. And we need to really begin looking at ways of mitigating the accessibility challenge that this created. But also, look, we decided years ago to get the city to get out of the parking business. And I know that was that's been a thing that people think is important to do. I think we need to rethink that. And I'm specifically thinking about Uptown.
Oh, really? You want the city to get into the parking business in Uptown?
Well,
We're gonna
look,
fight?
what about municipal parking? I mean, look, there are many places that have municipal parking. Not only is it a revenue generator, but we can keep the price down on it. Unlike, again, because we're not in a profit-making. Private parking, it was one private parking thing. I was downtown. I can't remember which one it was, but do you know how much it cost me if I stayed there over 3 hours?
How much?
It was $25.
Well, you should have taken the bus, DeWayne. No sympathy for me. You should have ridden the bus.
And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, but there's a value in discouraging people from bringing their cars downtown, because we want to say, like, there are other options. If everyone who's driving and getting cheap parking, it's just traffic.
That's why I want us to build out transit and get it so that you have access to something right away, and then get you there in a timely fashion, and you're not spending all your time waiting on the ride.
What have we not talked about that you think is important that maybe you were hoping we would talk about?
So, John, I know this is sometimes people think this is weird to talk about, but I want to talk a little bit about what I see as the values element of this. And some people think that is outside of policy, outside of politics, that doesn't mean anything. But what I want to say is this: look, I'm very hopeful about the future. I know some people think that's strange, But I want to tell you that because the reason I'm hopeful is because in Minneapolis especially, and this is what I've discovered since we moved here, that people want to do the right thing. Look, we have our differences, we have our different approaches to things. We even have some, I think, some historic divisions that we still have to try to, live through and work on. But what I'm talking about is, I think that what the mayor has been selling is a kind of cynicism, a hardness that says you have to distrust and be afraid and be suspicious of your neighbor. Whether they be a socialist or whether they be this or they be that, you have to be afraid of them. And that doesn't serve us. That's not going to serve us. And it certainly is not going to serve us in the age of Trump. And so what I'm saying is, in the past, what we've done, when we've had challenges, we've come together and we've figured it out. We're no longer known as Murderapolis, because when we got that moniker, we said, you know what, this is not who we are, this is not who we want to be. Let's bring everybody on board to figure out how to deal with this. And that's what I'm asking for. That's what I want Minneapolis to do. That's what I'm trying to bring to politics and to the city enterprise. A way of working together where we're not mistrustful, but that we really do it together. And I believe if we do that, we can accomplish a great deal. I really do. I just don't want us to fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the cynicism. Don't fall for this, these people over here because they believe this ideologically they are enemy. Don't let that be the way we do this. If we do that, if we combat that, if we arise above that, we can accomplish a lot of stuff. And that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I want for us. I don't want us to do this the way it's been done in the past. I don't want us to do it the way Mayor Fry sees it. And I don't want to do it with the business and developers think that the people who don't make that much money or people in the margins are somehow something to be dealt with or put to the side so they can get their dreams met. I want all of us to be invested in everyone doing well. And we can do that, and you don't have to lose anything to do that. There is enough to go around for all of us to enjoy.
Well, thank you, DeWayne Davis, candidate for mayor of Minneapolis. Do you ever go to the Weber pool? I have never been.
I have not been to any of the pools here.
Not pool guy?
No, it was so funny. We were just back in my hometown, and I was showing my husband the pool I used to go. The neighborhood pool was right around the corner.
Right.
And I was like, I haven't done this in forever.
Well, this has been the Wedge Live podcast. My guest has been DeWayne Davis, candidate for mayor. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening, and I'm very tempted to get into the Weber pool here. It doesn't look like it's open. Is it not open?
Well, I saw some kids playing it earlier, so I don't know.
It looks very inviting.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you for listening and watching. Goodbye.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.